All right. Excuse me, Mr. Johnston here. Pen's still not working, right? Okay. I'm going to try and get through this a little more in depth since some kids missed class because the computers were all screwy on the city side of things. But I'll try and keep it under 20 minutes. So Tuesday, October 6th. Today I can solve equations with variables on both sides. That's going to be our difference today. I can show my proficiency by scoring 70% or better on my exit ticket. So we're going to combine, actually, we're just going to take what we had learned last week and we're just going to add the fact that there's going to be variables on both sides. So here's a couple of steps you want to remember. Remember the distributive property. So the distributive property looks something like this. I have A, M plus N. And I distribute this A to the inside. And when I do that, I'm multiplying it to both values on the inside. So this would become A times N plus A times N. All right. Then we have combining like terms. If we're doing that, we would have, say, a 2x plus 3 plus x. And we would know that we would want to find the things that are on the same team. And this would be the x team. So 2x plus x would give us 3x plus 3. Now, what we say when we say in variables on both sides, that would be an expression or an equation, sorry, that looks something like this. Okay, and we're going to get into how to solve those. I just wanted you to see one before we got into it. And you remember the inverse of addition and subtraction. That's when we get to those two-part or two-step equations that you guys should have no problem with when we get there. And that's just making sure that we know the difference, or the inverse of addition is subtraction and vice versa. The inverse of multiplication is division and vice versa. So to start off, we can solve the following for the missing values. I'm only going to do one by hand, or I'll do a couple by hand. All right. So we look at our 5 steps, and I'm going to tell you now that we are not going to use the distributive property or combining like terms for any of these problems. Or at least the first 2 steps, the way they were intended. But I'm just going to go through them for this first problem. So the distributive property, there's nothing on the left-hand side I can distribute. I'm going to treat that as its own expression. Come to the right-hand side, and there's nothing that I can distribute here. Now I need to look about combining like terms. Excuse me. On the left-hand side, I have 10k minus 9, so that's k and constant, so I can't combine anything. And on the right-hand side, I have the same k and a constant, so I cannot combine anything. Again, for the rest of these problems, we're going to skip steps 1 and 2 and jump right to 3. So now we're on step 3. And you guys can remember that was variables on both sides. So what I'm going to suggest is that we want to get all of our variables onto the left-hand side. And that'll help when we are doing inequalities later. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this 9k, and I know that it's positive, and I'm just going to do the opposite of addition. I'm going to subtract it. Remember, if I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other side. And we'll see that these cancel out. That's going to leave me with a 10 minus 9 gives me 1k. Now remember, we do not have to write this one here. If you'd like to, that's fine. I'm not. I bring down my negative 9 equals, and I bring down my positive 10. All right, from here, this should be a problem nobody should have an issue with because you guys saw this all last week. So we look for the inverse of subtraction, which is addition. If I do it to one side, I have to do it to the other. These cancel out, bring down my k. My equal sign, 10 plus 9, that's going to give me 19. All right, so let me show you on Desmos real quick how we do this. And you'll hear me say this a lot. All right, first step. We're going to write the left-hand side of our equation in Desmos, which is 10k minus 9. Now we're going to hit enter, pretend that's our equal sign, and then we're going to write the right-hand side, which is 9k plus 10. Double check that you put this in correctly. Then you'll see that our variable is k, and we only have one, so that's k equals. and just try your answers. Try A, 1. So you see that my left-hand side of my equation gives me a 1, and my right hand gives me a 19. Well, I need these two values right here to be equal. So now I'm going to do K equals -1. And you'll see that the left-hand side, my top expression, gives me -19. And the right-hand side, my bottom one, gives me a +1. These are not the same. So then I tried 19. And here you see that the top expression, or left-hand side of my equation, is 181, and the right-hand side is 181. So our answer is, in fact, 19. Now, if you're just doing this on Desmos, make sure you check all the answers. So -19 doesn't work. But make sure you're checking all 4 answers to make sure that you didn't make any mistakes. So there you've seen it longhand, you've seen it on Desmos. You know that Desmos will, in fact, work. All right, so another one. Remember, we're solving, so that means we're looking for the missing value, and in this case, it's A. So I told you that we're not going to have any distributive property or combining like terms, so we're going to jump right into the variables on both sides. We'll have a 3A on my left side and a 1A, remember that's a 1, on my right side, and it's positive. So I want to move it from my right side to my left side. Again, you don't have to. There's multiple ways you got to solve these, but this, I'm just letting you know that it's going to be helpful in the future when we get to inequalities. So I subtract 1A from both sides. And you'll see these cancel out. So I'm just going to bring down my equals 4. And I know that 3 minus 1 is 2. And don't forget about my A. And then bring down my -10. From here, we see that we have a 2-step equation left. We should not have any issues with these guys. Right? So we look for our 4th step, which is the add or subtract inverse. All right, I know the inverse of subtraction is addition, so I add 10 to both sides. I know that that's going to cancel out, so I bring my 2A down, and that's going to equal 4 plus 10 is 14. Now I know that 2A is the same as 2 times A, so the opposite of multiplication is division. So we divide both sides by 2, and I will just, these will cancel out. I'll be left with an A equals, and 14 divided by 2 is 7. So we know our answer is A. So another cool thing with these problems, and these work the same as what we did last week, and this is why I said this is my favorite type of math. Algebra is a lot more enjoyable than some of the other stuff that you guys will take later. But I know that my answer was A equals 7. All right, so from here, I can plug in my A and check my work. So everywhere I see an A, I put a 7. Everywhere I see an A, I put a 7. Now, you don't have to put it in parentheses. It's just a personal thing of mine. So 3 times 7 is 21 minus 10. And this will just be 4 plus 7, which is 11. 21 minus 10 is 11. And 11 equals 11. So that's how you check your work. You'll get, it's kind of like the way Desmos works. The right-hand side equals the left-hand side, or left-hand side equals the right-hand side, same difference. All right, so let's just do the last two just in Desmos. All right, just in Desmos, just to show you how fast and easy these can be. All right, so I need to clear out my Desmos, and I'm going to put the left-hand side of the equation in, which is 5y plus 4. Pretending my enter is equals, and I have 4y plus 5. My variable is y, so y equals, and I'm just going to try each answer. So A is 1/9. Well, you can see that I have 4.5 repeating for my left-hand side, and for my right-hand side, 5.4 repeating. So it's not going to be 1/9. Let's try -1/9. Again, these numbers do not equal, so it cannot be the correct choice. I put in my 1. I get a 9 for both answers. So I'm thinking pretty good. I'm feeling pretty good that C is going to be the answer. But let me just double check D to make sure. And -1 gives me a -1 and a 1, which is not the answer. So 1 gave me 9. Again, if you want to just check Desmos, because maybe you're like, I don't like to believe in computers. Everywhere there is a Y, I'm going to put a 1. Right? Everywhere there's a Y, I put a 1. Now we'll get. So 5 times 1 is 5. That's your multiplicative identity, I believe, plus 4. 4 times 1 is 4 plus 5. And you can see 5 plus 4 is 9. And 4 plus 5 is also 9. So Desmos did not fail you. All right, and then another one on Desmos. We're going to put the left-hand side of the equation in Desmos, which is 13 minus 6x. Enters like my equals. 7 minus 5x. Enter. Now my variable is x. So I put in x equals, and I'm just going to start reading across. A is 6. Negative 23 and negative 23. So I can feel pretty confident that A is going to equal 6. But, whoops. But I need to check all of my answers. So B is 21, negative 113, negative 98. That's not going to work. C is 1, 7 and 2. Those are not equal. And 13, which is negative 65 and negative 58. So those are not going to work as well. So just using Desmos, we can see that the answer is A. All right, so you guys had one of these on your test. I'm just going to, and most of you guys did really well on this. You must have remembered it from last year because we just went over it for the test review. So I know that these little black squares are going to be negative 1s. These white rectangles are just going to be x's. These black rectangles are negative x's, and these white squares are 1s. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4. So I have 4 negative 1s, which would be negative 1, minus 1, minus 1, minus 1. And we know that that's just going to be negative 4. And then I have 1, 2, 3 of these white rectangles. And we know that's x plus x plus x because they're positive. And we know that that's just going to be plus 3x. Remember, we're doing this portion where it says create an equation. Right, you can kind of look at this line right here as an equal sign. And we also got a little hint when it said equation. Remember, equations have to have an equal sign. Equation, equal sign. And the 3 black rectangles are going to be negative x's, which is negative x, minus x, which will be negative 3x. And then we know that the 2 white squares are just 1s, so that's going to be 1 plus 1 is 2. All right, so if this was multiple choice, you just want to come down here and match it up. So I'm going to look for a negative 4. Oh, well, I know that I mentioned earlier in the year, the more appropriate or accepted way to write out math is usually you put your variables in front. So this is the exact same thing as I have above, except I've just moved my negative 3 or my positive 3x in front of my negative 4. So I'm looking for 3x minus 4, 3x minus 4, 3x minus 4, negative 3x minus 4, can't be B, negative 3x plus 4, can't be D. All right, and then I'm looking for my second half of my equation, negative 3x plus 2. I got negative 3x plus 2 and a positive 3x plus 2. So that leaves me with the answer to be A. All right, and you'll get questions like that where it'll say create the equation. That'll be your first part. And then you need to solve for x, right? So you get these 2-part questions. All right, so Amber has $120 and she earns $75 each week. Arlo has $100 and he earns $85 each week. Remember these keywords we had last week? Now it says write an equation to find out how many weeks, that's our variable, how many weeks it would take for Amber and Arlo to have the same amount of money. Remember, that was a keyword too. So to have the same amount, they must be equal to each other. All right, so let's start with Amber. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put Amber on the right-hand side, and then I'm going to put Arlo on the left. All right, so Amber has $120. So Amber already has this $120. Nobody can take that from her. And she also earns $75 each. Remember, that means multiplication, week. And a week is our variable. right? Week is our variable. We have weeks here. So I can look at my equations now. 75x, 120. That's 100. That's way off. That's way off. So my answer is going to be A. And I did that with only doing half the problem. But just to double check, I'm going to go ahead and put Arlo in. So I know Arlo already has $100. Arlo already has $100, and that's positive. You can't take that away from him. And Arlo makes $85 each week. Each week. Right, and you can see that that's going to be correct. All right, last but not least for the day, Darla has $25 and makes $30 per day. Alfalfa has $70, sorry, and earns $15 per day. How many days would it take for Darla and Alfalfa to have the same amount of money? Right, the same amount, equal amount of money. So over here, I'm going to put Darla, and over here, I'll put Alfalfa. So I know that Darla already starts off with $25, can't take that away, and she makes $30 per day. Remember, here's our variable, how many days. All right, and then I know that Alfalfa already has 70 that he saved, and he earns $15 per multiplication day, my variable x. So now I just have an expression like what we've been working on. All right, and you can pop this into Desmos. Remember, put this guy in first, and then this one. Whoa. And then this one. Or, since I haven't done one by hand in a while, I check for distributive property, not happening. Check for combining like terms, not happening. So now I'm going to deal with having variables on both sides. So I want all my variables to be on the left-hand side. So I'm going to do the opposite of addition of 15x. You'll see here that my line down the middle for you. These cancel out. 30 minus 15 will leave me with a positive 15x. And now we're back to just having a two-step equation. So the inverse of addition is 25. These are going to cancel out. Bring down my 15x. 75 minus 25 is 50, 45. And I know that 15x is 15 times x. The opposite of multiplication is division. And you can see that x equals 3. These 15s cancel out, and 45 divided by 15 is 3. So our answer is, in fact, A. All right, I know that that was a little fast, but you guys can rewind, you can pause, you can replay. So I'm not really that stressed about that. If you guys have any questions, don't forget Raider Prep is at 12:45 every day, or Tuesday through Friday. And then Monday office hours are 1 to 2. But if you shoot me a message or email, like I'll work with you, whatever works for both of us. So good luck, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.